The Chancellor Rachel Reeves yesterday defended her decision to axe payments of up to £300 a year for 10 million pensioners amid a potential revolt at the Labour conference. Unions and some OAPs have branded the move evil. She insisted she had no choice. Have a look.
I know that not everyone in this hall or in the country will agree with every decision that I make. But I will not duck those decisions. Not for political expediency, not for personal advantage. Faced with that £22 billion black hole that the Conservatives left this year, and with a triple lock ensuring that the state pension will rise by an estimated £1,700 over the course of this Parliament, I judged it the right decision in the circumstances that we inherited.
Yesterday also saw pensioners stage protests outside the conference. Labour bosses have been accused of trying to silence OAPs by delaying a union-led vote to reverse the cuts until the final day tomorrow. The vote is non-binding, but it could pile more pressure on Labour if the conference officially rejects the policy. But Nick, you think they're doing the right thing?
Absolutely. Needs must. Absolutely needs must. You know, there are many, many people over 66, which is when the winter fuel thing came in, who are more than able to cope with it. I absolutely accept that there is also a segment of society that is so impoverished that they absolutely need it and they perhaps should get more. But it's actually, I think, about 1.3 million people, as opposed to the moment to something like 11 million people get the winter fuel allowance. I can, as it happens, do without it, and there are many, many people like me.
So the people, it's not you that people are worried about. It's the people just above the cut-off. And they reckon there are about 800,000 people who should be getting it but haven't filled out the right forms. Yeah. But there are people just above that who feel they're really going to miss it. They're going to be heating or eating.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I think, Nick, obviously I don't know your financial circumstances, but I'm going to
let's have a guess.
They're not too bad. And I think you're talking from a place of privilege where there are some people, and do you know what it does? It actually stifles ambition of those who still actually work. Maybe 18-hour jobs. There was one lady, she works in an admin position, 18 hours, and she misses the threshold by £3. So I think the threshold is wrong. I think there are so many people that are going to suffer. I'm all for pensioners who actually have wealth, assets, and a large amount of savings, that being taken away from them.
Are
but
you?
not the... Well, yeah, because
obviously not their assets being taken away, but
no. I'm saying the winter.
I thought you were calling for massive stripping of wealth.
No, I'm saying for those who, like you said, it's very obvious that you don't need it, and you've come out and you've said that. For those who
paid the tax,
it needs to be tested.
But just because I can afford it doesn't mean to say that I'm unaware of the existence of those that can't. I absolutely get it. Now, you're just talking about the threshold. At the moment, they have chosen the threshold. You may say it's wrong. Let's not pretend that the unions aren't driving this for all their worth. You don't think all those pensioners with the placards arrived there of their own accord. They were bussed in, of course they were. The unions are driving this thing. And I say, needs must, at the moment, everybody's going to get smacked one way or another in the budget next month.
There's other ways that they could have raised money. I'll give you an example.
Well, this happens to be a very effective way.
Well, it's
knock out 11 million people, but pay that 1.3. Maybe pay them more.
We'll find another saving then.
Labour is supposed to be, again, as Rachel Reeves said, we represent the working. Well, not really. You're not representing those who are worked hard all their life. They're not on benefits, but they could do with some help. OK, alternatively,
go on.
In 2021, Google avoided paying billions because they moved their profits abroad. Why can't we get the big tech who can afford it?
That's a different question.
As a business advisor on The Apprentice, tell me why
You've answered your question, haven't you? Is the answer they've avoided paying tax by moving their headquarters abroad?
Well, then we
there
need
we
to
go.
We
That's
need,
what they
we need
do.
to be more of a stickler on getting them to pay more if they want to operate in this country.
You fly after Google and...
Well, they operate in this country, pay your way.
I imagine that Rachel Reeves burst into tears when she suddenly realised she's going to have to do something that every fibre in her body is against. But she was confronted with a situation whereby we're down the tubes for 22 billion and she's going to have to make some hard choices. Now, she's making hard choices by knocking
the vulnerable
winter fuel away from 10 million people.
But the hard choice,
the most vulnerable.
Okay, isn't the hard choice to tell the train drivers they can't get a pay rise without
Yes.
agreeing to some changes to their working patterns? That would have been a hard choice, wouldn't it? You probably agree with that.
The unions, you know what, what's his name? Mick, I love him, the RMT. Lynch. He said, actually, the unions are going to return the economy. The unions are going to be powerful as hell.
Did they do that?
And they're driving this argument.
He says they're
driving this argument.
They're going to bring the economy back onto its feet.
That's what they want to do.
It's interesting. That's a good thought. Maybe they can.
I doubt
Claire
that
and
very
Kent,
much.
hello,
History doesn't
Claire.
say that.
Listen,
Hello.
Hang on. This priority first to caller. Hello, Claire.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right.
Right, tell us what you think of this lively discussion.
Well, I'm used to lively discussions on your programme.
Yeah, me too.
It may sound a bit selfish, but right from the very beginning, I did not need the winter fuel payment when they first brought it in. And I'm quite comfortable in my little tiny bungalow, and I just basically don't need it. So I'm quite happy not to receive it anymore.
Okay.
And I would add that my best friend will be 90 in December, who's a dyed-in-the-wool Conservative voter. She doesn't need it either. And we know there are people out there that do need it. I come from a family that lived on national assistance, incidentally, when I was a child.
You know how tough it can
So
be.
I do know what it's like to go without.
Do you think so? We're told that 1 in 4 pensioners is a millionaire. I mean, that seems amazing. Or maybe that's because of property, is it, Claire?
Yeah.
Well, it must be, mustn't it? I do really resent the very, very wealthy receiving these benefits.
All right. Well, listen, thank you for calling. And it's really nice to hear your voice, Claire. You take care.
Thank you.
Bless you. After the break. Now, more of your calls on whether the government is right to stick with winter fuel cuts. In her Labour conference speech yesterday, the Chancellor said axing payments was the right decision, despite unions and pensioners branding the move evil. 0207 862 2222. Do tell us, do you back Rachel Reeves? Nick was saying he does. Let's go to Janet in Shropshire. Do you back her, Janet?
Hi, Jeremy.
Hi.
How are you all doing? I do not back them because they've acted with too much speed on this question, and I have the greatest respect for Nick, but in this case, I think I'm going to override his view. Because I work with Age UK, just recently retired myself, and I have visited poor people who might have their own assets in their homes but cannot afford heating, and to be told at short notice they're not going to get any help is a disgrace.
Janet, I know it'll be a hard-faced thing to say, but what if someone says, well, if people own the house, they've got the money, albeit tied up, they'll need to sell they've got to sell the house.
I would love to agree with you there, but I am just downsizing to a bungalow, and get this, I'm going from 4 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms, as I'm retired. My husband's disabled, he's losing the winter allowance, and the council tax is going to be more money than the 4-bedroom house I'm in. It doesn't make sense, does it?
Oh, what the council tax on the new place is going to be? That's weird.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I think downsizing isn't always the big money saver. It's supposed to be. You've got stamp duty and everything, yeah.
And it's going to cost me £7,000 stamp duty to downsize.
Yeah, I mean,
which new first-time buyers won't have to pay that much money.
No, I mean, could you somehow pose as a first-time buyer? No, I'm joking. I see through that. All right, Janet, thank you. So old people not able to just sell their house?
No, and another thing that Janet's raised is with the council tax. The last time they had a look at the council tax in terms of the value of the properties was 1991. So many properties have increased in value, especially some of those central London places. They could generate the money from there.
Because the bands are the same. It's all about the proportionate. I don't get why they say it has to be revalued.
But then, even echoing what she said, you can't just sell your property and go and move where? Rent, which is extortionate at the moment. What would they do?
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Buy? It's cheaper to stay in the house.
Well, would you have them move out of their houses?
That's nonsense. Nobody should have to sell their house
Well,
in order
what
to
then?
raise
You've
some
got
money
heating.
to pay their fuel bills. That's a nonsense. Of course it is.
But this shows
And
how
it's
out of
awful
touch
to
you
think
are,
that
Nick.
might be the case. Say again?
This shows that how out of touch you initially where she said that she's working
Well,
with Age UK.
he's 80, right? He's in touch.
No, because he's got a few bob, surely.
No, but, you know, I'm moved with people and all the rest of it. And I understand family members and so forth that perhaps haven't been quite as fortunate as I've been. And I've only been lucky. That's all it is. But I still think that 11.3 million people currently get winter fuel allowance. And now, if this goes through, 10 million of them will jolly well do
you not
without
think
it.
it should-
And 1.3 of the most impoverished will get it.
Yeah,
I'm all,
that's exactly it.
maybe give them more or move it a bit. But the principle is right.
OK, Sharon in Staffordshire. Hi, Sharon.
Good morning, all.
Do you agree with that?
I do think it's a good thing that they need to look at that winter fuel system, but I think the old system needs to be looked at completely, because you've got people that have worked all their working lives and they're entitled to it, but because they're over that threshold of, say, £5 or so, they can't get it. And then you've got the people that have never worked, never contributed, and they're going to get all the help that they can get.
Yeah.
Well, this is the whole problem with the
kick in
benefit
the
system,
teeth.
as we know, is that if you spend, you know, the person who says their mother saves and saves and saves and saves, when she has to go into a care home, the whole lot gets taken out of her and she ends up in an armchair next to somebody who never worked or couldn't be bothered or spent it all or whatever. It does, Sharon, you're right, but I don't know how we ever get round that.
Yes, because, Jeremy, that happened to a co-worker of mine. Her parents worked all their working lives. They've got a beautiful house. They had to go into care. They had to sell their beautiful house.
Yep.
Yet there were people in the care home that have never worked, never contributed, and they were getting the same care as them. How can that be right?
Well, and what would your solution to that? It's so
I think
unfair.
we should be a bit more generous. So some people earn more than others. Come on.
They didn't earn
they
anything.
Still need
they
to be
just sat on their
cared for.
backsides. They didn't earn anything.
Oh, so they must now be punished.
They shouldn't
You've been
be.
very, very
Yes.
lazy, and we're not going to look after you.
Yes.
You're going to have to go to the corner of that field and make do as best you can.
No,
I
no.
think that is
Not
no way
necessarily
to
a field.
deal
No, but-
with our fellow human beings, frankly.
No, but Nick, we have to show that people who decided to knuckle down and work really hard in maybe low-paid jobs should now be rewarded with working hard, with a little bit of help, instead of those who took the route of just sitting on their backsides now get everything.
But that's where Blair announced in 1998, no one will have to sell their home to get care in old age. That was like 30, 25 years ago. I mean, come on. We never found a way around it. Thank you, Sharon, so much. Anna in Lincolnshire. Let's get back to our topic of the winter fuel. Do you think Rachel Reeves is right to stick with it?
No, absolutely not. I'm absolutely disgusted with the Labour Party and think that by targeting elderly, vulnerable pensioners is an absolute disgrace.
Well, they obviously are deciding it's a major, major thing they cannot back down from now, or they'll be just shredded. So she and Starmer are having to stick with it.
Well, I actually think that they would have more credibility by doing a U-turn. I mean, I've signed numerous petitions being led by Age UK, and all the charities in the country that support the elderly are saying they've got it wrong. The union bosses are saying they've got it wrong. I watched some of the interviews yesterday, and I think, I just feel it's an absolute disgrace. And I've got lots of elderly relatives. They're not rich. Some of them don't have equity in their homes. And they are still working in their 60s and 70s. I know a lot of teachers who are still working in their late 60s and 70s. My husband's one of them. And for the first time, maybe they are getting the winter fuel allowance, and that's withdrawn from them. Wow. And I just feel it's where they focus their millions is overseas in some very murky charities that have been involved in some very unusual things last October. And I think that the Labour Party has decided to support more overseas aid and into some questionable organisations.
Foreign aid and all that, yeah, okay. Which is about 11 billion a year. So they could slice up foreign aid. No?
Yes.
You think they should?
Yeah, I think they should. For now, I think that they should scrap foreign aid.
Just not help anyone with anything.
It's not. I don't see it to be help. I see it to be going. A lot of the money, like the caller said, goes to questionable hands. Feeds in the hands of the corrupt, and it doesn't get to the people that really need it. And if we are here so desperately in need, let's look after our own first.
Well, so foreign aid is about 11 billion, and actually they do knock off about 4 billion to house migrants in the UK. They take that from the foreign aid budget. So this is about 1.7 billion, so you could easily cover it if you scrap foreign aid. But also maybe look, I don't know, would you look at benefits paid to people in their 20s?
Yeah.
And you say, look, you can't possibly have anxiety and not be able to work
or
if
living
you're
at home.
26. I don't know.
Why would you get benefits and you live at home? Figure it out.
Okay,
Get a job.
so if you live with mum and dad, you're not entitled.
No.
That's interesting. It's the school of hard knocks, that, though.
Yes.
Right. Okay, you probably get
Winter
elected.
fuel should be means tested. They've just done a sweeping blanket, which is wrong.
It is means tested.
Well, not.
It is.
Not
means
really.
tested.
It's where we're heading. Okay,
Means
but
tested.
you obviously don't like people who've paid a lot of tax getting anything back for it. You know, you said Mick Jagger shouldn't get the winter fuel payment.
No,
this
he
guy's
should
paid the
know.
tax.
No. I think people who are comfortable, but we're talking about those
They paid
who are
the tax.
£3, £5, £10, who just about don't qualify to be able to get a benefit, the winter fuel.
Okay.
Those are the ones that should get it.
John is East Yorkshire. Hi, John.
Hello.
Is Rachel Reeves right?
Absolutely not.
Everyone's saying this. You think, but could she reverse it without getting so much egg on her face she'd have to make an omelette?
So she's more worried about getting egg on her face than she is about killing pensioners because they can't afford to heat their homes. Is that what she's saying?
Yeah.
And my
Well,
question,
you're
I would like to ask Nick a question if I'm allowed.
Of course you are. That's why he's here.
Right. He is a businessman. He's been in business for many, many years, and I respect him. I like him. I think he's a brilliant bloke. However, Rachel Reeves and Starmer have had access to the books for months and months.
And you got 20 seconds.
If
John,
she
listen,
cannot-
pause
if she
your question.
cannot
We have to take
recognise-
our break. And I can see your question needs a bit of a run-up. So pause it. We're going to take our break, and you can ask your question to Nick, OK? John, still?
Yes, thank you.
Great. You're all lined up. Both
Right,
barrels then.
I wanted to know off Nick,
Yeah.
if they've had access to the books for months and months, which they have, how could they not see this supposedly surprise black hole of 22 billion? Either they are incompetent and can't read the books, or they're lying. And I would like Nick to tell me which he thinks it is.
I think they've known about it a long time. And actually, they announced it very quickly. And there was great hoo-ha with the ex-chancellor saying, oh, this is absolutely untrue and all the rest of it. But they've stuck with the story, the truth, I believe, that there was a little bit of smudging around before the election. And it's been revealed now that the inheritance that Labour have got is a black hole of 22 billion. So I think that's, it was out there very, very quickly. Now...
But were they lying?
Who?
Labour, because Labour said,
No.
oh my goodness,
you said that they
we
knew.
came in and,
No,
and,
you
and
said that
they
it's a
knew.
total shock. They say it's a shock. And
Well, listen, you remember when Tony Blair came in, the Chancellor had opened his drawer and there's a piece of paper in it from the previous government saying there's no money left. The opposition, as they go into an election, does not know what the financial
But
situation
you said that they
is.
did know.
They knew as soon as they opened the books when they were in power.
Day one, right.
They went round to the
not
Treasury
before. They
and the
didn't know
Treasury
before.
John,
said,
what do you think? So
No.
so Nick says they came in and it's a shock.
They knew for months before.
They did
And
know.
Nick keeps going on about giving certain people more money. They do. MPs, they get 17 times what a pensioner gets for fuel allowance. We get offered £200, which they want to take off us, but she gets 3,400. He's not taking that off her, is he?
OK, thank you,
Hold
John.
on a second. Let me just kick back
Go on, yeah,
this.
yeah.
First of all, I truly believe that it was not until Labour was actually in power and they trotted around to the Treasury that they discovered that there was a black hole of 22 billion pounds.
Okay, that's
point
interesting.
one. Secondly, you're saying, you see, there is this feeling, you mentioned the word pensioner, and a vision pops up in your head of a little old person who's broke. But actually, let me just tell you that 22% of households headed by a pensioner, I wish it was me, actually, have assets of $1 million or more, and indeed 27% of pensioners live in millionaire households. Not all pensioners are broke.
What should
John,
they do?
John, come back in.
Should they sell the house?
There are 11.3 million people eligible to be pensioners, of which 1.3 deserve assistance, and maybe it's a few more. But many, many more.
Right.
Maybe it's not 10 million, but maybe it's 8 or something. Can get by
let's
perfectly
move on.
well.
We've got more to say, John.
And
thank
we
you.
need the money.
Thank you for your question, Nick. Very clearly saying, genuinely, they came in, they opened the books, and they said, "Oh my God, 22 billion."